Finding a school. To begin with, let's take a quick look at the types of school that are available. Schools controlled by the local authority are referred to as maintained, which is shorthand for maintained by the local authority. Those controlled by the Secretary of State are referred to as academies. Those which are neither of the above are usually controlled by private contract. Maintained schools are sometimes referred to as state schools or institutions, and they're controlled by the local authority. A school which is maintained by a local authority may be a mainstream school, but this can also refer to special schools. Settings controlled and funding and maintained by local authorities include mainstream schools, such as community mainstream schools, voluntary aided, trust, foundation or grammar schools. Nurseries, that's freestanding or part of a community primary school. Special schools, alternative provision, including pupil referral units. Post-16 institutions, that's further education colleges and sixth forms. Pupil referral units for pupils who need to be educated out of school, often because they've been excluded. They have the same legal status as schools in some respects, but do not have to teach the national curriculum. Schools controlled and funded directly by the Secretary of State for Education include academies, free schools, university technical college schools, studio schools, academy special schools, alternative provision academies and academy boarding schools. As with maintained schools, these may be mainstream schools, special schools, much but not all of the law and guidance for maintained schools also applies to them, including being subject to the same inspections as state schools by Ofsted. As far as EHCPs are concerned, as a parent, you can request an academy with the same effect as a maintained school, and the local authority has a duty to admit your child. And for this, see the Children and Families Act, section 43, 1 and 2. And this is often a question that comes up on the Facebook group. Schools not controlled by the local authority or funded directly by the Secretary of State Education are broadly referred to as independent schools. Some of these schools also have provision available for children and young people with SEND, and these include non-maintained special schools. These are charitable foundations and not-for-profit. This type of school can take a mixture of children and young people with and without EHC plans, but in practice, almost 100% of their pupils are publicly funded through EHC plans. Independent schools, about half of all independent schools are charities, and therefore these will be not-for-profit. Due to their independence, the provision they offer can differ from that which is provided in a state school. They include prep schools, private nurseries, early years provision. They can be mainstream or special schools, specifically arranged to make provision for children with SEND. Some have a faith character or follow particular philosophies. These independent non-Section 41 schools have no legal obligation to admit a child or young person, even if this is requested by a parent and even if this is in Section I of the EHCP. Section 41 schools. These are independent schools which have been approved by the Secretary of State under Section 41 of the Children and Families Act 2014. As schools which parents and young people can request to be named in an EHC plan. This means parents or young people have a right to request that this type of school is named in an EHC plan in the same way as they can request a maintained school, for example. Private post-16 institutions, some of these may have a Section 41 status. Independent schools have different regulations regarding exclusions. The School Discipline, Pupil Exclusion and Reviews England 2012 do not apply. Independent school exclusions fall under contract law. It's essential to read the small print of the contract provided, as this still applies if your child has a place funded via an EHCP. Even independent specialists will have caveats on what they will and will not accept, primarily from the behaviour of the child or young person. For those who have had a failed placement or who are at one of the aforementioned schools and need still isn't being met, despite a high quality EHCP, we will be holding a drop-in focusing on EOTAS this summer, so look out for that. We won't be discussing EOTAS this evening for this reason, but we do have YouTube clips and a blog on EOTAS, which we would recommend that you go and have a look at. So that's schools, but where and how can you find them? And how do you know if they're suitable? Every local authority must publish their local offer under Regulation 57 SEND-Regs 2014. This must list all information on the provision that is available in this local authority for education, health and social care for children and young people with SEND. However, as you may be surprised to find out, the local offer will not be providing you with the full picture of what is truly available in your area. Why is this? Why do local authorities not provide the broader spectrum of what is available? Well, because it's not in their best interests to inform parents, especially independent or independent mainstream schools. These schools are expensive, in theory at least, and so the local authority will be looking at putting bums on seats in the cheapest schools, even if these schools struggle or just cannot meet need. The law states that the local authority must name the most cost-efficient school that can meet the needs outlined in Section F of an EHCP. The law also states that all children are entitled to a full-time mainstream education. But what the law appears to overlook is that not every child is suited to a full-time mainstream education, and that's not by choice, but due to additional needs that just cannot be met here. This leaves parents feeling that their child sits between mainstream and maintained special. Now, there'll always be a minority of those for that it's extremely challenging to place in any educational placement, and we'll discuss this further when we hold our EOTAS special. Here we're looking at children who can indeed and do have their SEND needs met in school, including those children who are considered to be sitting between or indeed above mainstream and maintained special. We support many families to achieve this via robust draft checks, EHCP checks and annual review, and if necessary, via the appeal process. So let's have a look at these schools and see what makes them different. Independent schools. These are the schools that are not maintained by the local authority or funded directly by the Secretary of State for Education. Expect a highly adapted curriculum here. Many will also provide mainstream qualifications, think GCSEs, in some cases A-levels, along with functional skills, vocational qualifications, and module-based qualifications such as ASDAN. They will also offer additional activities such as Duke of Edinburgh, sports clubs, school trips and residential. All will be differentiated to meet the needs of the children and young people who attend. Alongside this, there'll be a cohort with similar needs, teaching and support staff who will be qualified and experienced in the needs of SEND children and young people. In some schools, there'll be therapeutic interventions embedded with on-site therapists. Others will have therapy assistant animals in classrooms and school nurses. Small class sizes, a high adult to student ratio will be the norm. And yes, if it's evidenced in your Section F that your child requires additional support to this ratio, this will also be provided. It sounds ideal, and it is, but it costs. We often hear this cost is deemed too high. However, for the children and young people who attend on an EHCP, and some of these schools will take private fee-paying children and young people, the cost of providing the whole of their Section F in a maintained school would be inextricably higher. A placement where all school staff, and think not just teachers, but lunchtime staff, office staff, caretakers, who are already experienced and trained to support and understand SEND, where adjustments have already been made, where the curriculum will be implemented with relative ease, because all of the children and young people are at the same level, as opposed to constantly differentiating every lesson just for one child. Add to this the cost of putting SALT or OT interventions in place with funding for one, rather than placing in a child where this is already in place, makes this type of school suddenly relatively economical. Remember that by law, the named placement in Section I must be able to make all of Section F provisions. And we come back to what is known as my favourite equation, B plus F equals I. It all hangs on the draft EHCP final. This is why it's critical to have a robust draft or an EHCP check. To know the type of placement that can meet need is to know that your EHCP has all of your professional evidence in BNF and that this is worded legally. And again, we have blogs and YouTube videos to give you more insight into this. So where to find these schools that the local authority won't tell you about? We have a featured post on our Facebook group with links, but in addition, I'll go through some examples. And it's prudent to note that although we as a business may have personal experience of some of these schools, we give examples here and we are not linked to or endorsing any one particular school. Some specialist independent schools can be tricky to hunt down, more often than not because they're so sought after that they don't need to advertise. And it can be helpful to look at their websites to get an idea of what these schools offer, even if this school isn't in your area. So look at North East Manor in East Sussex, Bruin College, again, East Sussex, Philpotts Manor School, West Sussex, LVS Hassocks, the Tower School at Epping. The Good Schools Guide online, scroll down and on the left-hand side, click Special and Refine by putting in your postcode. Special Needs Guide is also an online resource that will help you find a school in your area. Some will be under their own group websites. Look at Compass Schools, Aurora Group, Witherslack, Spaghetti Bridge and Cambrian, for example. Ask locally, and this is where locally based Facebook groups are really helpful. It takes time and research and dedication, and the local authority will not be supportive in this for the reasons we've already discussed. However, we are, and we can guide you through this. And if we check your draft or final, we'll be able to advise on the type of school that the EHCP describes both before and after the check. And don't take our word for it. Go to our business page and Facebook and our website to find our testimonials, and you'll see the evidence of what we can do and the results that this has for children and young people. The correct placement for your child is just that. The placement that meets your young person and child's needs. Now, this may be mainstream, could be special or independent, and this is and must never be a game of top trumps. And that's something we see on other social media platforms. It's not all about EOTAS, it's not all about specialist independent, it's about getting the right school for your individual child. And the school type is not set in stone. The type that can meet need at primary can be very different to that that's suited to you at secondary school, for example. So keep an awareness of this. Prepare for this at annual reviews. Don't wait until phase transition. We have blogs and YouTube videos that will support you with questions to ask SENCOs and how to find schools and how to ensure that your EHCP is fit for purpose.